Hello and welcome to our professional development training over the reading wars. Thank you for being here. The huge debate over the reading wars has been how should students learn how to read? Our learning outcomes. By the end of this training, teachers will understand the history and debate surrounding the reading wars, recognize the components of evidence-based reading instruction, apply research-based strategies to support student reading development, evaluate suggestions on how to teach reading, and have tools to listen to parents' reading instruction concerns. So, the three key topics we will be reviewing in this presentation is one, the history of the reading wars. Second, the suggestions and recommendations on how to teach reading. And third, addressing parents' voice and concern over reading instruction. So, first, we're going to start off with an activity. This activity is for you and your team to work on together. If you need to pause this video to have more time, please do. So, decode the mystery language. The first slide is using the next few slides. Read the paragraph and answer the comprehension questions. The second slide in the activity is to use the key to read the paragraph again. And the third slide in this activity is answer the reflection questions with your fellow teachers. So go ahead and read this paragraph and answer the questions with your team. Now, using the decoding key, the mystery word, and put it with the real word. Reread the paragraph using the key. Remember to pause if you need more time. Lastly, here are the reflection questions. How confident were you in answering the questions before the code? What strategies did you use when the words were unfamiliar? How did the decoding key change your understanding? And how might this mirror the experience of beginning or struggling readers? Pause and answer these questions with your fellow teachers. Now, moving on to the history of the reading wars. The reading wars is whole reading versus the science of reading. This war has been debated for over 100 years. The reading wars were primarily a debate between decoding-focused phonics and meaning-focused whole language approaches. The reading wars debate now frequently centers on how to implement phonics effectively alongside meaning-based instruction rather than the phonics versus the whole language. Research now supports systematic phonics as essential, especially in early reading development. Here is a timeline of the reading wars. We can see that it goes back and forth with how whole word reading is the influence and how phonics is the influence. So in the 1690 English primer includes phonics methods to teach reading. In the 1800s, Horace Mann suggests students should learn to read whole words instead of letter sounds. In 1914 to 1950s, William Gray encourages teachers to instruct children on how to read whole words while avoiding isolated phonic drills. In 1955, Why Johnny Can't Read by Ralph Flesch challenged the premise of the meaning-focused instruction approach and encouraged phonics. In the 1960s to 1970s, Jeanne Cowles' research indicated that phonics instruction helps children become skilled readers. In 1967, Kenneth S. Goodman and Frank Smith wrote a journal article challenging the idea that reading involves phonics skills. In 1980s to 1990s, the whole word reading persuaded numerous states to adopt new curriculum frameworks and instructional materials that would push away phonics instruction. In the 1993 to 2000, the federal government asked experts to synthesize and research to highlight the areas of scientific agreement to improve reading instruction. In the 1990s, the International Assessment of Education prompts states legislatures to pass mandatory phonics bills. In 2000, National Reading Panel reports findings emphasized the use of phonics and teacher-led instruction to teach students how to read. So, the whole word reading instruction approach. Their premise is that readers are only making predictions and substitutions of word, look, say, while reading based on context rather than decoding. Readers are constantly updating reading skills as new information is learned. They support the ideology that reading is a natural process. Whole word reading instruction emphasizes memorizing words by shape and getting meaning from the context of the sentence/story and background. Whole word reading instruction increased the emphasis on meaning construction, use of context clues, and access to authentic texts. Next is the science of reading instruction. What is their approach? They are a skilled-based instruction. Science of reading instruction encourages bottom-up approaches where letter and sounds come before reading the words. Students learn to read by direct instruction led by the teacher. Students do drills to learn the sounds and letter blends that make up words. So the 5 pillars of literacy in the science of reading instruction: phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. So, suggestions and recommendations for teaching reading. Again, these are suggestions and recommendations. What you know how is effective for your student is what you can do. This is just an option. Key reading components: oral language, phonics, phonemic awareness, fluency, vocabulary, prior knowledge, comprehension, motivation and purpose, integrating reading and writing, text at the right reading level, assessments, whether it be diagnostic and comprehension. Again, these are going to be critical at certain points of the student's level. A kindergartner is not expected to do all of these things, but possibly a 5th or 6th grader or high school student would be. More additional suggestions. In the journal article by Louisa Moats, it states that reading instruction consists of 2 related processes: word recognition and comprehension. So Moats suggests that word recognition relies on phonemic awareness, understanding the relationship between sound letters, phoneme and grapheme, correspondence, recognizing patterns in print, and identifying meaningful parts of words such as the morphemes. So this sounds like it's more of the science of reading than the whole word approach. Reading comprehension relies on background knowledge, vocabulary, and the ability to understand complex sentence structures, metacognitive skills for monitoring understanding, and the awareness of the elements that connect ideas with it in the text. So that's what sounds more like the whole word reading approach rather than the science of reading. But the science of reading components are still there. So students practice reading through oral and silent reading. A key part of reading is the ability to sound out words to create automaticity and fluent reading. Children's interest in reading must be stimulated through the regular exposure to books at their level and interest while being exposed to a variety of texts. So that component is where the whole word reading encourages students to read and make joy out of reading. So reading should be direct, systematic, explicit, and engaging. How to address parents' concerns. Families often hear different messages about reading instruction. Clear communication can help build trust, understanding, and support at home. So, as the teacher, always being willing to explain the reading instruction approaches used by our school or by your teaching practices. Share examples of phonics skills taught in the classroom. Send home simple practice activities. Explain how decoding supports comprehension. And encourage parents to listen to their child read and talk about a story. So, parents might have concerns about the whole word approach. We can explain it through these components. Students are not expected to memorize every word. Students are taught how to decode unfamiliar words using letter-sound relationships. High-frequency words are practiced to build reading fluency. This is one where there's the bit debate on it. How do we teach our students high-frequency words if we're not teaching them this phonics skill? This is one where it is where you have to memorize this word. It has different components. It has different letter sounds than what is normal. So encouraging students to memorize those high frequency words will help them be better learners, and not only reading them, but also helping them learn how to spell them. Students will engage in rich reading experiences and discussions. Next, addressing concerns about the science of reading approaches explained. The science of reading includes not just phonics, but comprehension, vocabulary, fluency, and phonemic awareness. Children have meaningful reading experiences by reading stories, poems, and texts they enjoy. Decoding skills help children read new words independently. The science of reading supports struggling readers and those with reading disabilities. Going back to the decoding skills, students can use those decoding skills to read it in their brain before it comes out of their mouth. And that is a great skill for students to learn instead of just guessing the word by looking at it. So, in our learning outcomes again, by the end of this training, we understood the history and debate surrounding the reading wars. We can recognize the components of the evidence-based reading instruction, the whole reading approach versus the science of reading approach. We applied research-based strategies to support students' reading development. We looked at how we could teach students how to read and the components that are helpful for their strategies, for the correct strategies in your classroom. We looked at suggestions on how to teach reading, and we gave tools of how to address parents' concerns when it comes to reading instruction. Here are the references. Thank you so much for joining in on this training today. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope that you can apply what you learned in this training into your everyday practices with reading. Thank you. Goodbye.